Hey guys, welcome back to the 25th Ward. This is CG Gamer Girl signing on. So, last episode, we finished up Good Looking Guy. And while I understood some of it, like, is the guy dead or not? Because it ended with him, with what I can only assume is Kamijo, returning to where Machiko is. So, who knows? So, like I said at the end of the last episode, someone told me that it would be a better idea to complete Placebo and Matchmaker before Correctness gets to its fifth chapter. So it's like, I might as well just do it while I'm technically on its third chapter. Or fourth. I mean, technically fourth, but this is number 3. I don't know. So let's get started with Utsutsu. In March of 1979, an incident which would come to be known as the Silver Case occurred. The suspect's name was Kamui Uehara. Kamui Uehara was apprehended by a man named Tetsugoro Kusabi, a 24-year-old fledgling detective at the time. Little is known about Kamui Uehara, such as what sort of person he was, etc. However, there are several facts that have been passed down over the years, almost like an urban legend. The fact that Kamui Uehara committed his crimes in midwinter. The fact that he used some sort of special customized harpoon gun. The fact that he killed suspects and material witnesses in cases of crimes and human-caused disasters who couldn't be tried in the court under existing laws. The fact that he possessed the rarely witnessed attribute known as criminal power. It is unknown whether Kamui Uehara kills because he is contracted by someone or because he wants to kill. It was assumed that various mysteries surrounding this man would be solved in the interrogation after his arrest, or during the ensuing court case. However, 5 years after his arrest, in August of 1984, Kamui Uehara was diagnosed with severe psychosis, and his criminal trial was cancelled. In September of the same year, it was decided that preferential measures would be implemented, and he was admitted to the Kanto 24th Ward IMM Hospital Psychiatric Ward. To this day, it is unknown whether anyone has heard the man known as Kamui Uehara speak words with any sort of meaning since the time of his arrest. Information concerning the Silver Case is even less abundant. While the name of the case is famous, almost no actual details of the incident are known. Those who are especially informed, or the type that is especially into conspiracy theories and the like, may have heard tell of the following details of the case. At the end of the 70s, after having been dissolved and split up following a long struggle for power, the remaining hardliners for the FSO Frontier Conservative faction hired a hitman as their last resort. One day, the TRO, Techno faction, and CCO, Civic faction, that is, the two parties making up the current government, and also the factions responsible for driving off the FSO, held a meeting of 10 old men. These men were the respective parties' most important members. It was there that a man appeared. After using a special customized harpoon gun to kill every member in the meeting, the man was arrested. His name was Kamui Uehara. With all of the victims being old men, this incident came to be known as the Silver Case. Of course, no matter where nor how deeply one may search, no public records of this incident exist anywhere. The next time the man supposedly undergoing treatment showed his face to the world, it was March of 1999. The woman in charge of Kamui Uehara's counseling at IMM Hospital, at the time, was killed, and Kamui Uehara subsequently disappeared from the hospital. As he continued to evade apprehension, the violent crimes piled up. 2 female civilians were killed with a harpoon gun. Additionally, 2 agents of the Special Forces Unit Republic were also killed while attempting to apprehend Kamui Uehara. Daigo Natsume, the acting leader of said unit, sustained critical injuries. As the murderer of lore reappeared in the real world and started killing once again, people began to tremble in fear, and some began to worship him. At the time, the internet had not yet become widespread, and was still no more than an underground toy. But, possibly due to its close relationship with Kamui Uehara, it served to accelerate his deification, and helped him to permeate society even deeper than the mass media could. Additionally, the specific environment of the government special administrative region known officially as the 24th Ward, which was set up as an experimental area, was similar to the net. The common points between these two entities was the fact that, while comfortable and convenient, it was a constantly monitored and closed-off world, which gave its denizens the feeling that they were being deprived of something. Metropolitan Police Department 24 Ward's Heinous Crimes Unit christened the series of incidents occurring in March of 1999 with the name the Kamui Case. Heinous Crimes Unit 2 was home to Tetsugoro Kusubi, However, it was later revealed that Kamui Uehara, who had supposedly escaped from the hospital, was actually catatonic in an almost totally vegetative state. He was unable to do anything apart from eating and sleeping, let alone fatally wound anyone. The actual perpetrator of these serial killings was Ayame Shimohira, a woman with a special relationship with Kamui. The term criminal power may as well have been created by Kamui himself. Criminal power is said to be contagious. This is apparently especially true in the 24th Ward. Maybe Kamui Uehara's criminal power found its way into Ayame Shimohira and caused her to act as his copycat. That may be the case, and it may not be. Ayame Shimohira was apprehended and taken into custody by Heinous Crimes Unit 2 Special Agent Sumio Kodai. It was 1999, and winter was closing in. The true criminal power was about to show its fangs. Kamui Uehara suddenly escaped from the hospital and managed to make a comeback that nobody expected. After a month-long silence, Kamui murdered 7 important government officials in the A1 district at the center of the 24th Ward. Then, he disappeared. The situation grew stranger still. On November 30th, Kamui Uehara died abruptly. With reports that a man thought to be Kamui Uehara had infiltrated the International Environment Building, a special team put together specifically for the elimination of Kamui Uehara enacted measures to capture him and force the suspect to the roof of the building. Upon receiving the signal, sharpshooters placed in the surrounding buildings took aim and fired upon their mark all at once. The target was eliminated immediately. The body was destroyed to the point of showing no resemblance to its original form, so badly that it was impossible to tell whether or not it was really the man who was arrested 20 years prior. Data pertaining to the DNA of this Kamui Uehara had never been released. Everything written up to this point covers the surface and the background of this case. The background of the background, as well as the even deeper layers, are so complicated and incoherent as to be almost nonsensical. Self-awareness there, Suda? The origin of the whole story goes back 20 years prior to 1999. That is to say, to the time when the Silver case occurred. Someone, or some group of organizations, used the budget set aside for the newly built International Environment Ministry building to begin the directly controlled project known as the Shelter Kids Policy. The goal of the project was to develop an educational system appropriate for the high-level administrative metropolitan environment that was the 24th Ward. Over 1,000 four-year-old boys were gathered in the shelter compound, where they ate, slept, and were put through a specific curriculum created to shape their personalities into certain patterns. The main point of the program was to insert artificial processes into the development of the ego and sense of self of the subjects while they were still young in order to force their respective personalities and thought processes to conform to a specific mold. The children were subjected to endless cycles of the same simple, repetitive tasks, which gradually cut away at their egos. The personality set as the base for that which was planted in the minds of the shelter kids originated in Kamui Uehara. In essence, the shelter kids policy was fundamentally an experiment for the purpose of creating mental clones of Kamui Uehara. Due to this, the project was called Kamui Mass Pro meaning mass production. Also, some refer to the original Kamui as Format Kamui, with format referring to the fact that this Kamui was basically the mold from which all future Kamuis would be created. Why was Kamui Uehara selected as the original format? There are several theories to explain this. One of these theories is that Kamui Uehara was like a machine, unaffected by emotion, cold and robotic, and therefore able to carry out his assigned duties efficiently and without question. Therefore, as long as his criminal power was somehow removed, he would make a perfect mold for the people set to inhabit the strictly controlled and administered society of the 24th Ward. However, criminal power is like a type of mental energy, and it's extremely difficult to control or subdue. Some scholars reject the idea of its very existence, but making direct contact with Kamui Uehara makes it clear that he does indeed possess some sort of power. As I mentioned above, criminal power is contagious. People who make direct contact with Kamui Uehara are stimulated by a sort of shock, experience a kind of emotional reaction, and can feel compulsions and urges rising up inside themselves. Some people call criminal power a virus. This project, in its poorly executed attempt to analyze and copy Kamui Uehara, may have touched on something with which it should not have made contact. However, gathering the testimonies of people deeply involved in the project, it seems like that may have been the actual goal of the project from the beginning. It could be that the Kamui Mass Pro project was meant for the research and development of criminal power itself. Once again, the loop of doubt begins anew. What exactly was Kamui Uehara? A certain notebook contains information on this. The notebook contains writings pertaining to the origins of Format Kamui and something known as the Kamui system. Those not familiar with Kamui would think of it as a bunch of occult nonsense. This is the underside of the whole story. Could even be called something of a fairy tale. Kamui Uehara was born on a certain island, and at the age of 2, had the eyeball of a non-primate quadrupedal animal transplanted into his left eye as part of an ancient ritual of the indigenous tribe on that island. The transplanted left eye turned silver. The changing of the color to silver was supposedly a sign that the process of the program of death inside the bearer had temporarily stopped. The silver eye steals the crucial function of death from the living. That is to say, it makes the bearer essentially immortal. Additionally, this renders the existence known as Kamui a metaphysical being. It makes it possible to transmit or transplant the being known as Kamui to another person, if there's someone to receive it. It would be possible to transplant Kamui if one were to find a naturally born blood relative of Kamui's, or someone from the same clan, or at least someone with a similar personality. However, if there were man-made mental clones of Kamui, then this process would go even more smoothly, or at least the scientists behind the Kamui Mass Pro project believe so. Kamui dies, and if the next physical body to host the transplant is found, then the next Kamui is born. According to old lore, within the potential Kamui stock there exists the one charged with protecting the next Kamui. There are also others to whom other duties are assigned. This is a general outline of the Kamui system. The most crucial point to those who are aware of these secrets is the fact that it is possible for a normal person to take the silver eye and make it their own. By replacing their own eye with the silver one, it is possible for a person to gain the power of immortality. This is true, even for those who were not originally Shelter Kids. It is possible as long as the Kamui system continues to work. This is where a certain man who wanted the silver eye for himself had an idea. He could simply cultivate the field known as the Kamui system. If criminal power could be controlled, then the Shelter Kids would become easily controllable citizens. If necessary, this criminal power could be awakened, providing excellent soldiers in times of need. Then, the eyes of animals would be transplanted into the subjects, and if one of them turned silver, it could be taken. The silver eye could also be sold. The Kamui Maspro project began with various speculations getting mixed up and confused, but the reason the Shelter Kids policy was able to receive such huge amounts of funding, was because of the fact that if the mechanism causing this rare and powerful ocular transition could be explained and harnessed, there were clearly huge profits to be made. The funding was essentially investment money for creating a production facility for Silver Eyes. It is said that the main investor was the TRO. The TRO was originally centered on research development based on molecular biology technology and its applications. However, the Kamui Maspro project was not able to achieve the desired results so easily. Four years after the Kamui Maspro project, under direction from an organization that could be traced back to the FSO Frontier Conservative Faction, the IMA Maspro project began, based on the previous project. It seemed like simply a new project, but with only the gender switched. But this experiment placed the utmost importance on creating an even more robotic and machine-like soldier. There were also those who felt that a sort of counter-existence to Kamui was necessary. The original persona used as the mold for a format in Kamui was used once again. In the end, it is said that neither the Kamui Maspro nor IMA Maspro project was able to recreate the occurrence of the Civil Eye. However, there were 272 subjects who were able to reach the step just prior to this recreation. After that, the Shelter Kids policy, which had continued for 8 years, was suddenly put to a stop. Both of the projects, as well as their administrative entities, were disbanded and dismantled. What happened to the Shelter Kids? The Kamui stock comprised 1,440 people, and the IMA stock comprised the same number of children as well. These boys and girls were basically tossed out into the 24th Ward. Some of them spent their lives as ordinary ward residents, being woven into the Kamui system while waiting for their time to come. This means that the field known as the Kamui system, while incomplete, did indeed continue to exist. On the other hand, some of the subjects were thrown out of the system altogether. These were the ones who were not considered good enough or useful enough for Kamui stock. There have also been rumors that still more of the sheltered kids were more than simple mental clones of Kamui. Some are said to have been actual blood relatives to the original format Kamui himself. Let's bring the topic back to 1999. The Kamui incident reawakened the past of the Silver Case, causing a large number of people to die. This is a fact that must not be forgotten. Kaiji Enzawa, dead. Shinji Kotobuki, dead. Kiyoshi Morikawa, dead. Chizuru Hachisuka, dead. Morichika Nakatagawa, dead. Ryu Munakata, dead. On the other hand, there are some who survived. Ayame Shimahira, alive. Sumio Kodai, alive. Tetsugoro Kuzubi, alive. Sakura Natsume, alive. However, there is no guarantee that this list is completely accurate. Some of those thought to be dead may still be alive, and the opposite is also possible. One thing that needs to be said in closing is that sometimes miscalculations happen. This is especially true with conspiracies and work of sinister design. This is because the sun is always watching from above. One such miscalculation was the decision to produce Ayame along with Kamui. Maybe nobody stopped to think about what the opposition, the struggle for supremacy, and the cross-fertilization between Kamui and Ayame would bring. While the original intent was to create a man-made mass production factory for humans, they may have simply been creating a nest for Kamui himself, like worker bees. Furthermore, what about the rejected Kamui clones? With regard to possible meanings and purposes for their very existence, sadly, nothing comes to mind. Let us now delve further into the underside of the background of the whole story. The theory that Kamui Uehara never even existed in the first place. Or rather, he did indeed exist, but not as a hitman. It's said that he existed only as an ordinary ward resident. This theory appears to be true. If so, then several prerequisite conditions are rendered nil, but the true villain of the other story, of the other Silver Case, would be Kaoru Hachisuka. That's right, your father. If I just leave you with this little thought, I'm sure you'll come to remember all sorts of pertinent information. Well then, from here on I'm going to use hypnotic suggestion to seal off all these records and memories. Once you find the mobile phone number hidden inside the turtle and open your mail, this memo should reach your phone after a few hours. A crow is none wider for watching. This is an old expression that means that something naturally black will always be black. You cannot change the true essence of a thing. At least, I hope so. That I can continue to be me for as long as I am around. That whole thing was a big-ass lore dump. Huge-ass lore dump. And it took over 30 minutes to finish. Wasn't expecting that, and this is going to be kind of a boring episode, but a nice recap of what happened during the Silver Case. Not a full detailed, like, it didn't explain everything, but it explained the basics, the important details of the Silver Case. So, we'll be starting Nagare in the next episode. Till then, this is the Gamer Girl, signing off.